Hi guys, welcome to the second phase of our elementary programming. From the first phase, we have introduced some of the fundamental bases of Java programming language, some of the syntax you need to follow within the Java programming language. So for today, our second phase of our elementary programming, we are going to write a program that converts from degree Celsius to Fahrenheit and from Fahrenheit back to Celsius. So it's what we are going to do today. Before then, if you have this compiler, it's fine. And if you don't have this compiler, this IntelliJ compiler, you can watch some of our previous tutorial where we introduce how to download this compiler and install how to create an empty project and or classes within this compiler. So you can watch some of our previous tutorial. If you also have some other compiler, it's also fine. We can just go straight forward with our program. Alright, so now we have this template and we have already created our empty project. So the next thing we want to do now is to create our empty Java class, right? So we come here and we click new and we give the name of our class. So let's say Fahrenheit to Celsius. Good. Since we are converting degrees Fahrenheit to Celsius and from Celsius back to Fahrenheit, and we click enter. Here we go. And I will close this for you so you can see it clear. Very good. Alright, and we told you some of the syntax that you need to follow within the Java programming language. Whenever you are naming your class, the first letter should be your uppercase letter. So these are some of the things you need to follow when you are writing your program within the Java programming language. Alright, so here we have our empty class. The next thing we want to do now is to write our entry to our Java program. So we come here and we say public string x. Good. Alright, we got our public static void main string x, and that's it. Now we write our code. So let's understand the question first. We are converting from degree Fahrenheit to Celsius and from Celsius back to Fahrenheit. So there are two different kinds of functions we are dealing with, right? One is Celsius and another is Fahrenheit. So we need to declare a variable that we go for Fahrenheit and we also go for what? Celsius. And I told you all of the kinds of data types that you need to use within the Java programming language. Basically, like these kinds of data types like string, we got double, integer or int, and we got float, we got char or character, you can also say, and we got short. Alright, so these are the kinds of data types that we use every day. There are some other data types we can also use, but these are the one that is more familiar. So since we are dealing with temperature, we are going to use a double data type or a float data type. So like I told you from our previous tutorial, depending on what you want to do, you can use the kinds of data type. So we are converting temperature, so we need a double data type, right? So we say double, and we declare some of the things we are going to convert. We say Fahrenheit, so we will represent Fahrenheit with F and we represent Celsius with C, right? So let's say F for Fahrenheit and C for Celsius. Here we go, and we click next. Now since we have these functions that are doing two different things, we need to create a menu that will display and tell us do this for this, select Fahrenheit or select Celsius for the conversion table, right? So let's create a menu displayed functions that will ask us to select our functions to be converted. So we say south for system.out.println, and we say choose temperature. Alright, here we go, choose temperature. And the next thing we have is, let's say, okay, let's slash n1 dot convert Fahrenheit to Celsius. Alright, so the first one says convert Fahrenheit to Celsius. The second one, let's say /2, choose 2 from Celsius. Let's say convert Celsius to Fahrenheit. Okay, here we go. So we have our display informations that say convert Fahrenheit to Celsius and from Celsius back to what? Fahrenheit. So this is our display screen informations. The next thing we want to do now is to write our choice statement. So we will use a switch for the choice so that we can select 1 or we select 2 depending on the temperature you want to convert, right? So let's say int, since we are using numbers to as a selections or as a choice, so we will use integer int data type, and we say ch equals input. Now before we write this, let's come here and pass our input data type, because we are to request functions from the keyboard wherein we can insert the temperature or we can write the temperature for which we want to convert. So we need that permissions from the keyboard to insert the temperature. So let's say scanner input equal new scanner, and we come here, we say system.in. Alright, here we go. Now this is a library within the Java programming language. So this is the library for it. The library has already been inputted, right? So if you don't have this library, you can read this. This is the library. Once you read this, then you have this. There is no error will be here. Okay, so the next thing we want to do now is to pass the data type we were doing. So we can say int. Let's bring it down here, and let's say int ch for our switch choice, and we say equals input dot next int. Okay, here we go. So we have the way in which we can make the choice now. Let me convert it, zoom this so you can see it clear. This is the end of it. Alright, now let's move forward. Okay, the next thing we want to do now is to write our case choice. So let's write our case choice. We say switch. Okay, we say switch where okay switch, and okay, and we say ch, and here we come, we say case 1, good, south. Okay, enter. Let's bring this here up here so you can see it clear. Okay, since we are dealing with Fahrenheit first, what's the menu says? Okay, we are converting Fahrenheit to Celsius first, right? So we will make the functions for Fahrenheit first. So we write here enter, and we say enter degree, enter Fahrenheit. Let's say enter Fahrenheit, enter Fahrenheit, right? Good, here we go. The next thing we want to do now is to write our functions for the Fahrenheit. So okay, so like let's bring this guy one step here, and we draw this. Okay, so let's say if, course, the temperature, the declarations for Fahrenheit here is F. We pass F to represent Fahrenheit, and we pass C to represent Celsius, right? So we say F, And the next thing we say is let's say f equal input dot next double. Let's use double because Fahrenheit is a double data type. Okay, and what next we do is we say we write the functions, the formula. We say C, and we say Fahrenheit times 5/9. I think this is the functions and the formula for the functions. And the next thing we want to do now is to times this. So since we have this, let's say equals here. Let's write equals here. Good. Then the error is gone. There is no more error. Let me bring this up so you can see. Alright, so this is the formula. Celsius equals Fahrenheit bracket opening or like brace, and you say times 5 divided by 9, right? And here you go. Now let's say system the out the print in, and we say Celsius temperature is, and we say equal. Let's try to call it here. We say Celsius. Yeah, good. So this will convert Celsius to Fahrenheit. Now let's try it first. Then we can add the next functions. Let's try it first. Okay. Okay, so let's choose one because we are dealing with one for now. So let's choose one. Here the menu pop down and we can choose one. Okay, and enter Fahrenheit. So let's say 45 and 40. Let's say 45 is fine. And good. Alright, it's converting now. 2.05. Celsius temperature is 2.05. Good. Now since we have converted this one, let's add another functions that will convert from Celsius back to Fahrenheit. So let's say now we say break, so that it will be separated, and we can write our case 2, and we say south. Good. The next thing we want to say now is to convert Celsius back to Fahrenheit. So we say enter Celsius temperature. Good. Here we go. So let's say no. All right. Let's bring this up small so that it can be clear. Now we say Celsius equals, and we say let's write input first. Celsius equal input dot next double, so we can enter the data type. And after that we say Fahrenheit, and we say 9 times Celsius divided by 5. Good. And say plus 32, right? Alright, so let's try to make the formula clear. Let's take this guy from here. It should be this guy. Alright, and this guy remove from here. Good. So let's put this guy here. Sorry, let's say Fahrenheit equals, can we say equals here? Yeah. Okay, Yeah, this guy should be here. That's the formula. Alright, it's correct now. Good. Now, the next thing we want to do now is to write our statement. Say our SOUT, and we say our degree Fahrenheit is and we say our, like say Fahrenheit, let's represent it as F from the initial stage. I want to write the whole Fahrenheit and we say break. Good. So let's write some default statement, and like it says sorry. In case if you press anything out of the range, let the default statement pop out and say sorry, or let's say input the option you enter is not in the range. Yes, let's write some default statement. Good. Now we are done successfully with our program, right? So let's run it and see. Then I'll go into it. Alright, here we go. Okay. It's loading. Alright, here we go. So the first one says convert temperature, and like convert temperature from Fahrenheit to Celsius, and the other one says from Celsius back to what? Fahrenheit. So let's do for the Fahrenheit first, and let's input 1 and enter the temperatures. Let's say 50. Good. So this is the result we have. This is the result, you see. Alright, now let's run it again and see what next. Good. So let's do for 2 and enter Celsius. So let's say 100. Good. You see, so this is the result we have. Now for this break statement that says default, so let's do for default and see what happens. Now let's enter something that is out of the range. Let's enter 9. Good. Sorry, the option is not in the range. So guys, basically this is how to convert from degrees Celsius to Fahrenheit and from Fahrenheit back to Celsius. There are other programs too where you can write and that can do the switch, the continuous switch, but this one is just for the basic elementary programming. So like there are some I will bring wherein we can do a lot of switch and we can select some functions within the conversions table. So you might want to subscribe to our channel and click that the notifications button to get notified whenever we post a new video. We also have some project on the way coming for you. Thank you, and this is all for this tutorial.